In this video, I want to showcase and discuss the craziness of debuff stacking. Most people know about regular buff stacking, but debuffs are a slightly different case, and we'll see how in the perfect scenario, the new Picnic Flora and Felicia can reach over -20 in debuffs for one stat, not just 20 total. First off, I want to go over the basics real quick. A field buff is just a normal stat debuff most people think about. It's shown by red numbers in a unit stat UI, and it persists till their next action. Field debuffs are taken into combat for damage calculations, and in the case of multiple field debuffs on the same unit, only the highest value is counted. Field debuffs are basically the opposite of field buffs, but important to note that they can be removed if a unit is danced. This is not the same for buffs, where a unit will keep the buff even after getting danced for another action. Some common field buffs come from scales like Threat and Attack or Chill Speed, and many weapons also apply them too. Now for in-combat debuffs, these are much more rare but work on the same principle as in-combat buffs. They are invisible, meaning you won't see them on the field, but are active once combat starts. In-combat debuffs can stack with other in-combat debuffs and field buffs, again just like how increasing stat buffs work. At the moment, I don't believe there is a passive A, B, or C skill that even applies in-combat debuffs. There are weapons such as Young Azura's Book of Shadows and Julius's Loftus Tome that can apply in-combat debuffs for themselves. I think the only current way to apply combat debuffs for allies is from Tharja's Hex's special upgrade. In-combat debuffs are just not very common. A third type of debuff we need to understand is Panic. Panic is a status effect that turns field buffs into negative field buffs. It's a hard counter to any unit that likes to use field buffs, such as Legendary Roy here. On the left, you'll see that Roy is hit with Panic. Normally, his Human Virtue C skill gives him a +6 attack buff, however, Panic turns it into a -6 buff. Note that this is not a -6 attack debuff because negative buffs are not the same as debuffs, as confusing as that may sound. This is important because negative buffs can stack with debuffs. You can see this on the right where now the -6 attack buff is stacking on top of the -3 attack debuff. In total, Roy has -9 attack now. Normally you can cancel out debuffs with buffs like a +6 attack buff would cancel out a -4 attack debuff and you still get +2 attack total. However, if Panic is involved, you can do no such thing, and you actually just make things worse. Now for the fun part, let's put everything together to see how far debuff stacking can go. I'm using the story map with Tabarn since he has absurdly high attack. We are going to target Tabarn's attack stat and try to reduce it as much as possible. First off, I'm running Chill Attack thanks to the new Sacred Seal version. This hits Tabarn with a -7 attack debuff, and that's our field debuff. Don't worry about Race and dancing Tabarn, we are letting him attack before he gets danced. Next up, for our negative buff, we hit Tabarn with Panic thanks to a Versa. Tabarn can self-buff his attack with even attack wave, and that means Panic turns it into a -6 attack buff. Finally, for our in-combat debuff, we are using Picnic Flora and her unique dagger. Picnic Flora and Felicia have similar weapons, and they can both apply a maximum -8 attack debuff during combat if they have more than 16 resistance than their opponents. In this case, Flora easily has more than 16 res than Tabarn, so we get the full -8 attack debuff. In total, we get -21 attack in debuffs, which is just insane. Just to double check, let's do the math to see if it matches up with the in-game calculation. This Tabarn has 60 base attack, we subtract -7 for Chill Attack, -6 for Panicked Even Attack Wave, and then -8 for Flora's Dagger. We get 39 attack. However, since Tabarn has 30 impact, we have to add back +6 attack, which brings us up to 45 attack in combat. Flora has 29 defense, so 45 -29 gets us 16 damage, which is the same as the in-game calculation. I always see questions about Harsh Command, so let's discuss what it does in this situation. I was able to find a similar situation on Titania's and Mrs. Bad Hero battle map. My Tabarn has 57 base attack. He is hit by Panic, which turns his even attack wave into -6 as a negative buff. Then he also receives a -7 attack debuff thanks to an enemy sabotage attack skill. I then use Harsh Command on Tabarn, which turns debuffs into buffs. Here's what happens afterwards. The -7 attack debuff gets turned into a +7 attack buff. That is what's expected. However, Panic turns the +7 back into -7, but this time it's a negative buff, not a debuff. The -7 buff overrides the previous -6 buff, so in the end, Tabarn still loses -7 attack overall. As a reminder, Harsh Command doesn't do anything to Panic stats. You can't even use it because Harsh Command doesn't consider a negative buff to be a penalty, which is kind of stupid in my opinion. The only reason I can use it in this situation is because Harsh Command is targeting the -7 debuff. Hope you enjoyed this video about debuff stacking. Picnic Flora and Felicia can be quite scary because they don't only debuff attack, since Flora debuffs defense and Felicia debuffs speed. After the recent Tempest trials, I'm sure everyone is familiar with what Flora can do. Considering her res is so high, she applies the -8 debuff to just about every unit there, and with her high attack can bolt fighter, she's just a monster attacker. Keep in mind, we just got Chill Attack as a Sacred Seal, so you can create part of the debuff stacking combo we discussed. Even without the Panic status, Flora or Felicia can still apply -15 attack total with Chill Attack on the team. Obviously this applies to all the stat types, so using Flora with Chill Defense or Felicia with Chill Speed on the team can create some crazy scenarios. In the end, just remember that debuffs stack in the same way buffs stack. We just don't see a lot of combat debuffs to play around with. The Panic status also throws in a huge curveball and continues to be a very potent effect. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Delicious! Here's a taste!